When I was 9 years old, I moved for the very first time from Kansas to New Mexico. It was a big change going from the flat and some would say boring Midwest to New Mexico, the land of enchantment. Truly, it was beautiful. But it was also the first time I experienced sadness, the type of sadness that didn't go away within a couple of weeks, or even months. I felt uprooted, a feeling that I think that many of those who have moved can relate to. I would never again see the house I had lived in for all my life. I would never again step foot in my childhood room. All my childhood possessions had been packed up into boxes, and I didn't see them again for years, including my Halloween costume. My parents bought it 3 sizes too big, but I thought it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I was so small, barely growing, it seems like it would never fit me. When I was in New Mexico, I was finally tall enough, but no one invited me for Halloween, and the costume was nowhere to be found. When I finally found it again, just 1 year later, it was too small. To me, this perfectly paralleled the turmoil of my move. My Halloween costume represented all the hopes I had in Kansas, forced into a small box and lost. I didn't know if I would ever see them again. And even when I did find them, they were too small, I was too old. I had outgrown those dreams like I had outgrown my Halloween costume. I felt like everything was gone. I had only moved away a year ago, but it would feel like a chasm between me and the people who were once my friends. Once I left them, they would continue to change and grow as a person without me, and I would continue to change and grow without them. Their lives, which were once interconnected with mine, would just continue going on without me, and I was painfully aware of that. At 9 years old, I had no idea how to grapple with the feeling that I had just lost everything. I tried so hard to find a sense of normalcy in this new place, but it was so hard to fit in with these people who had already been friends for years. At a time when I felt as if everything I had and everyone I knew was gone, that's when I met her, the girl who would become my best friend. We quickly began to confide in each other. I would tell her that I liked Percy Jackson. She would tell me that she liked Harry Potter. I would tell her about the boy I liked. She would tell me about the boy she liked. I would tell her about my treasured old friends in Kansas, and she would tell me that all her old friends bullied her, and that I was her only true friend. I would tell her about a silly argument I had with my dad the other day, and she would tell me that her father had been abusive when he was in her life. She would tell me that after her father left, her mother was forced to work twice as hard. She told me that she resented her for never being there. I would tell her about my hopes and dreams for the future, and slowly, I began to realize that she didn't have any. I was the only person she told that she was suicidal. She told me one day, several months into our friendship, that I was the only reason she was still living. She begged me endlessly not to tell her mother because she thought she would get yelled at and forced to go to therapy. We were children. Therapy to us was a threat. Therapy was confirmation that something was wrong with you. I promised her that I wouldn't tell anyone, that I'd be there for her. And I kept that promise. What other option did I have? In a way, I was glad to be there for her. I finally found a form of happiness in the fact that I could take care of someone in the way that I had yearned for someone to take care of me. I felt proud that I was finally worth something to someone again. But the cracks were already starting to show. It put a lot of stress on me, always being there for her when no one else was. But I stayed with her. The year came and went. After that year, we both moved out of New Mexico, moving to 2 different states. The first time I moved, I saw moving as isolating. But the second time, I saw it as a clean slate. I only told a few people that I was moving, and when I left, I almost felt bad that I didn't feel bad. I felt hopeful. My time in New Mexico had been lonely and isolating. I wanted to start over. So I did. I was determined, this time, to make friends and fit in, so I made sure that I did. It was difficult at first, but I knew that I had to. How else would I move on? And weirdly enough, the more time I spent away from New Mexico, the more grateful I became for my time there, even though I hated it so much when I was there. I had struggled through the arduous moving process and emerged from it, though not unscathed. But for the first time in my life, I was able to realize that maybe that was a good thing. Maybe these struggles had changed me for the better. And maybe moving one more time wasn't so bad after all. But my friend didn't share my feelings. It was her first time moving after spending her entire life in one place. She felt uprooted. She would never again see her childhood home, her childhood room, her childhood toys. It felt like everything was gone, except for me. She was worried that my life would continue going on without hers, and that her life couldn't go on without me. Her mental health deteriorated, and she became even more dependent on me than ever. She would talk about the bottle of pills in the medicine cabinet, thinking about taking all of them. She would talk about sitting in the garage and turning on the car engine, waiting until she died from the carbon monoxide. She called it a peaceful way to go, the ideal way to die. It was disturbing, the amount of detail she used to describe the processes of killing herself. But I didn't know what to do. I was scared that if I told anyone, she would think that the one person she trusted had betrayed her, and then I was terrified of what might happen then. I thought that if I didn't drop everything I was doing and respond to her immediately, she would kill herself, and it would be my fault. So I dropped everything. I stopped doing homework that was due the next day. I stopped eating in the middle of a meal. I stopped spending time with my family. Slowly but surely, I warped my life to support hers. Imagine that. 10 years old, not even being able to spend time with your family, because you're terrified your friend will die in the short time you're away. At 10 years old, I felt the full weight of responsibility that comes from another person's life being dependent on yours. She would tell me that I was the only reason she was still living, but I wasn't enough. My best friend tried to kill herself. I found out that she was in the hospital, and I was too scared to check up on her. I was so scared that I would text her, and her mother would text back, saying that she was dead. A lot of things raced through my mind at this time. Guilt, the feeling of responsibility, the chance that I might never be able to see her smile or laugh again. At the same time, though, I began to realize that it had been a while since I had smiled or laughed. I seemed to never have time for it anymore. I was constantly occupied with my friend. I was sad when she was sad. I could only be happy when she was happy. It struck me that I was no longer living my own life. It was this that reinforced to me why I want to live. No matter how hopeless I felt in New Mexico, I never once thought of attempting. Even though I felt as if everything had been lost, there was still a small voice deep inside that told me, there's more for you to find, and you will be all right. And I never once questioned that. I never once thought of dying, and I know that makes me lucky. I will forever be grateful that I want to live. Honestly, I'm afraid of death. I don't want to die. There's still more for me, both now and in the future. I want to live to see myself graduating high school. I want to live to see myself what college I get into. I want to live to see if there's love for me out there. I want to live to see my parents and my friends surrounding me. I never want to live to see my parents and my friends standing over my hospital bed because I tried to kill myself. I don't want to die. For my family, for my friends. I want to live for myself. I knew what I had to do. Eventually, I got the news that my friend was discharged from the hospital. She was alive. The first thing I told her was just how much she meant to me, which only made it harder when I had to tell her that I couldn't be the one to help her. She needed support from psychiatrists and other friends, not one scared child. I had to tell myself it was the right thing to do because I was scared. I felt like I was betraying her. I felt like I was an evil, selfish person who had abandoned their friend simply because their situation had gotten too inconvenient for them. I had to tell myself that once I left her, she would continue to change and grow as a person without me, and I would continue to change and grow without her. Her life, which was once interconnected with mine, would continue going on without me, and we would both be all right. I talked to her recently, for the first time in almost 5 years. We both apologized to each other, we both thanked each other. We will never be friends in the same way again, but we will both never forget the impact we made on each other's lives. Because of her, I will never forget why I want to live. I will never forget why I wake up every morning. I want to make this very clear, because I know there are other people, other kids, like my friend and me, who need to hear this. For the people like me, you are in an impossible situation where nothing feels like the right choice, because nothing is. But you have to understand that you are not evil. If you spend all your time supporting your friend, you won't have enough time left to support yourself. And you can't support others if you can't support yourself. For the people like my friend, you are not broken. There is not something fundamentally wrong with you. I understand. It takes so much more work just to feel like you're on the same playing field as everyone else. It takes so much more work to complete everyday tasks, and that feeling like the entire world is racing ahead and slipping away from you can be demoralizing. I know it feels impossible, but you can feel happy again. It just requires support, not from one person, but from an entire system of people. The problem in the relationship between my friend and me was not the fact that she was suicidal. It's that I was the only one who knew.